All right, let's dive right into this explainer, where we're going to take behavioral science and use it to decode those signals of romantic interest we all constantly miss. Have you ever walked away from a conversation and thought, wait a second, was there a vibe there? Were they flirting with me? Look, it's an incredibly common, totally universal human experience to just feel completely clueless in the moment when it comes to chemistry. We're constantly trying to read the room, but let's be real, more often than not, our radar is just completely broken.
And honestly, there's a good reason we feel so clueless, and it's backed up by this genuinely staggering statistic. 72%. Yep, studies show that we actually miss 72% of flirting signs. I mean, that is a massive blind spot. Even if you're just people watching, observing two folks interact from the outside, you might catch a really obvious touch on the shoulder, but you'll almost certainly miss the subconscious giggling, the self-grooming, the prolonged eye contact, the whole shebang. Because we're just so bad at passively observing these fleeting little signs, it means we desperately need a better system than just, well, guessing. We need a way to actively test for attraction.
So instead of flying blind, we can actually use a scientific solution. Today, we're breaking this down into 3 active behavioral tests: reciprocity, comfort, and investment.
Let's kick things off at the bottom of the escalation ladder with our first category, reciprocity tests, which rely heavily on the subtle psychology of mimicking behavior. So back in 2009, a researcher named Nicola Gagin discovered something pretty fascinating. He found that the subtle mimicry of words, or even body language, is absolutely one of the most potent indicators of interpersonal rapport. Basically, when two people start unconsciously mirroring each other's physical movements and speech patterns, well, it's a scientifically validated green light.
We can actually see this ping-pong effect play out perfectly in real-time interactions. Just imagine a couple talking. He starts swaying his body slightly, right? And she matches that by swaying too. He tilts his head, she tilts her head. He nods, she nods. He raises his hands to gesture, and boom, her hands elevate right back. It's like a dance. They're matched step for step when that chemistry is present. On the flip side, if an interaction is bombing, you'll see almost zero reciprocity. So to test this yourself, just make a specific natural movement. If they do the same thing, they're probably enjoying your company. But quick caveat here. Don't jump to massive conclusions over one single matched head tilt. You're always looking for a cluster of these signs over time.
Now, you can further test this reciprocity by subtly playing with distance. Picture this. You're in a loud spot, maybe a club with loud music playing, and you naturally lean in and out to hear them, subtly entering and exiting their personal space during the chat. You want to pay really close attention to 3 specific reactions. If they stay calm while you enter their space, okay, that's a solid indicator of interest. If they take a step back, yeah, clear indicator of disinterest. But, and this is literally the golden ticket, if they move towards you as you pull away, that is a highly elevated sign of interest. You pull back, and they subconsciously follow to close the gap. It's pretty amazing to watch.
Okay, so a slightly riskier reciprocity test involves playing with the verbal side of things by tossing out hypothetical, implied future plans. For instance, if she casually mentions, "Oh, I've always wanted to visit Greece," you can playfully shoot back with something like, "Damn, let's go to Athens together then. Should I book the tickets?" You're basically throwing a conversational ball right into her court. If she plays along and adds her own ideas to the game, she's actively reciprocating the very premise of spending future time together.
Moving on up our escalation ladder, we hit the second pillar, comfort tests, which are really all about navigating boundaries safely.
It's funny because airlines actually have the absolute perfect definition of comfort for this exact scenario. They don't define it as a state of pleasure, but simply the lack of discomfort. And you can figure out how comfortable someone is with you by carefully testing how quickly they become uncomfortable. A study from 2016 showed that being too touchy is heavily perceived as, well, intrusive and creepy. So if you want to test the physical boundaries safely, never go in with the palm of your hand. It just feels way too forward. Instead, use a calibrated approach, a super brief touch using the back of the hand. If she stays comfortable with that quick back of the hand touch, she might be into you. If she pulls away, you just step back and absolutely don't try it again. Oh, and goes without saying, but you definitely need to build some initial conversational chemistry first before you start testing physical boundaries.
Now, if you want to combine entering personal space with physical touch, say you're in a group setting. You might point at something or someone interesting and just briefly place your arm over her shoulder to show her. But, and this is absolutely crucial, you must keep it brief and break eye contact to look at whatever you're pointing at. Since you're physically close, keeping your eyes on the object instead of staring her down keeps the whole interaction feeling totally safe and respectful of her boundaries.
For a brilliant, totally non-physical comfort test, Just ask for a small favor. This actually taps into the Ben Franklin effect. It's this wild psychological phenomenon where someone who does a favor for you actually becomes more likely to like you as a result of their own helpful action. Think about it. If a random classmate asks to copy your notes versus the person you have a huge crush on, you are infinitely more likely to help out the crush, right? So just ask for a tiny favor. If she accepts, she might be feeling it. And the best part? Granting that favor actually subconsciously boosts her attraction to you.
And finally, we step up to the absolute highest stakes on our ladder, investment tests, where we're looking for profound, high-stakes shifts in established behavior. Now, to prove that this isn't just some modern dating trend, we can actually look back at human nature from centuries ago. Take the 1663 diary of Samuel Pepys. He was this young guy basically trying to figure out the world, tracking human behavior in his journal. On a business trip, he accidentally meets a woman named Mrs. Lane. Now, she was known for being stunning, but also incredibly unusually reserved. He ends up extending an invitation to her, which eventually leads them to a wine house, and it sparks this really profound realization that he records in his diary.
So when Pepys asks her out, her response is incredibly telling. She tells him, quote, "I don't really go out with men, but I'll accept your invitation." When he wrote that down, he realized something huge. A very modest woman with strict personal rules simply doesn't just casually break them. She stepped right over her own core principles for one reason, because she was highly interested in him. Her response beautifully illustrates the sheer power of human investment. Flash forward to the modern world, and communication researcher Jeffrey Hall points out that we have our own everyday versions of these investment tests. A major one? Someone suddenly agreeing to activities they actively disliked. Like, say she agrees to go see the newest Marvel movie with you, even though she notoriously hates superhero flicks. That is a massive behavioral shift. But there are smaller signs too. People are way more likely to laugh consistently at your jokes if they like you. And you know what's even more telling? Pre-laughing. That's when they literally start laughing before you've even finished the punchline. They're so invested in the interaction with you that their reactions are literally jumping the gun. So here's the absolute biggest takeaway. Attraction doesn't have to be this total mystery that we're just blindly guessing at. We have a real structured scientific framework now. We've explored the psychology of mirroring through reciprocity tests, the tricky art of navigating boundaries with comfort tests, and the incredibly revealing nature of behavioral shifts with investment tests. So armed with these insights, my final question to you is this: how are you going to ethically apply these tests in your next interaction? Keep these behavioral tools in your back pocket, pay attention to the data, and hey, you'll never have to be part of that clueless 72% ever again.